Greetings and welcome to the North American Invasive Species Management Association's May webinar. My name is Christy Trifon-Millhouse and I am your NAISMA Executive Director. This webinar will be presented in both English and Spanish for our viewers. The first half will be in English and the second half will be presented in Spanish. You'll see an interpretation button at the bottom of your screen where you can select the language you would like to listen in. If you're an English speaker, you can leave it as original audio for the start, and then you'll be reminded to switch it over later. If you're listening in Spanish, you'll want to select Spanish and mute the original audio. A few housekeeping notes. Use the chat to let us know where you're joining us from. All questions for presenters need to be added to the Q&A section. If you put it in the chat, we won't be able to answer it. If you have a reaction to a presentation, feel free to use the reaction button at the bottom of the screen. Finally, we will add a copy of this slide to the chat, so those that may need a reminder or that come in late can find instructions there. The trouble with lionfish, perspectives from across North America. I'd like to give a special shout out to our co-host for this event, CONABIO, the National Commission for the Knowledge and Use of Biodiversity of Mexico. Before we begin, I'd like to share a little bit about NAISMA for those of you who don't know us well. NAISMA, or the North American Invasive Species Management Association, is a nonprofit organization with a mission to empower the management of invasive species in North America. We are governed by an 18-member board. We have 10 active committees who support our programming. We have 17 members that lead our programs and 900 NAISMA members. We communicate with over 14,000 subscribers, and we have over 38,000 that interact on our socials. This past year, we've reached over 2.9 million people with some of our special events. So what do we do? NAISMA provides the connection, the voice, and the tools that you need to address invasive species. We frame our programs around these core pillars. The connection. We provide opportunities for collaboration and connection through our webinar series, summits, and events like our annual conference. The voice. We provide a collective voice on a national platform to advocate for relevance and support through our government relations program and the National Invasive Species Awareness Week. And finally, the tools. We equip our membership with the tools needed to manage and educate the public about invasive species through Play Clean Go, the NAISMA Shop, our Certified Weed-Free Products Program, NAISMA Mapping Data Standards, and the Invasive Zoo online learning. I'd like to share a few upcoming events that I encourage you all to participate in. NAISMA will be hosting its annual Play Clean Go Awareness Week, June 1st through the 8th. This annual event aims to educate outdoor enthusiasts on the importance of stopping the spread of invasive species while enjoying the great outdoors. This year's theme is Real People, Real Stories, and we'll be highlighting individuals and organizations that have demonstrated how they play clean go to protect their favorite wild places. You can submit your story by emailing playcleango@naisma.org or visit the Play Clean Go website and find the resources there for our upcoming event. You will not want to miss the 2024 NAISMA Annual Conference co-hosted with the Montana Invasive Species Council. Mark your calendar and plan to join us in Missoula, Montana from September 30th through October 3rd. Our theme this year is sharing stories and celebrating partnerships. There will be over 70 sessions to attend and 2 additional events, including a symposium on invasive annual grasses hosted by our partners at the University of Wyoming's Institute for Managing Annual Grasses Invading Natural Ecosystems and the Invasive Annual Grasses Technical Transfer Partnership. The second add-on event will be a continental dialogue on non-native forest insects and diseases, hosted by the Nature Conservancy. This is surely an event you will not want to miss. As a friendly reminder, your membership does help to fund our programs and opportunities. If you're not currently a member, we offer a variety of different membership options and strongly encourage you to join us. We do offer a monthly plan for the professional level membership. I encourage you to check that out. For partnering organizations, we also have several membership options available to you. Please reach out if you have any questions. And again, please consider joining us if you're not currently a member. You may be wondering, why lionfish? NAISMA's 2024 Know Your Invasives campaign, which focuses on lionfish. And our goal for this campaign is to raise awareness about the threats invasive species pose to marine ecosystems. We have some great information about the lionfish available on our website, and also have a fun new collection of items for sale in the NAISMA shop. Every purchase helps to support NAISMA and our programming. This is a great way to learn more about invasives, marine invasive species, and to support our programming. With that, I would like to turn it over to Yolanda if she has joined us. Has Yolanda joined us yet, Tegan?
She has not joined us yet, so I can jump into introducing our first speaker, and we will get that interpretation and everything set up and have her do an intro afterwards.
Great. Thank you so much.
Great. So yeah, we will remind you of the settings as we get to that point, but I'd really like to introduce you to our first speaker, Dr. Steve Gittings. He's the Chief Scientist with NOAA's National Marine Sanctuaries program. He has worked in the field of conservation science his entire career, characterizing and monitoring marine ecosystems, assessing damage and recovery following ship groundings and oil spills, and applying science to management. Recently, Dr. Gittings has been developing traps designed to catch lionfish in waters beyond scuba depth. The traps minimize bycatch, eliminate ghost fishing, and are being tested for their potential to help fishermen provide lionfish to seafood and other developing markets, supplementing their income while also doing conservation. So we really appreciate being here with us. I'll have you pull up your slides, Steve, and we'll get started.
Will do. How's the audio? Is that okay?
That sounds great.
Okay, good. Give me just a second and I will get there. Okay, am I showing?
Yes, that looks fantastic.
Excellent, thank you. I appreciate the invitation to give this talk. I certainly enjoy talking about lionfish, as all my friends know. And it's been quite a career highlight for me to work on this, not so much for the lionfish, but for the people I've met along the way. So very happy to give this presentation to you all and see some of my friends on the call as well on the list of attendees. You know, lionfish, they have a unique way of making their presence known, if not by their beauty, then by their venomous spines, as Alex Fogg in this picture found out within about 2 seconds of this picture being shot. If you've ever been stung by a lionfish, you know that words are insufficient to describe the pain. But this picture is certainly worth 1,000 curse words, at least. I'm sure that's about what happened here. And if their beauty or their, arsenal of venomous spines isn't enough to get your attention, then their ecological impact might be. Lionfish have, in some places, reduced native fish populations by up to 60%, numbers that are equivalent to the effect of, say, fire ants in Texas on other ant species. So that there are food web impacts that happen when this occurs, caused by the loss of fish and invertebrates that are so important parts of the food web on different reefs. There are impacts to fish health, native fish health, especially as cleaner species are lost. And then there are increases in algae cover when herbivores are depleted. And these are just a few of the many problems caused by lionfish. But today I'm here to talk about the status of the invasion of this Indo-Pacific species in the Western Atlantic. I'll briefly cover the history of the invasion, talk about some lessons we've learned along the way combating it, mention some of the unexpected positive impacts that have come about as a result of the invasion, and give you our impressions of the current status with regards to the way the invasion has evolved or matured, as I put it in my title. And then finish with some questions that we still have about both where we are now and where we're going. We believe that the first Indo-Pacific lionfish were released into the Atlantic about 40 years ago, likely off South Florida, as you can see in this time sequence on the right, in the mid-1980s, probably as unwanted aquarium pets. And then populations were too low to allow much growth over the first 15 years or so, so not much happened in terms of spread. And these kinds of lags are common among introduced species of all kinds. Then at the turn of the century, the population suddenly exploded. And by 2005, they had gone up the East Coast and out to Bermuda and the Bahamas. By 2010, they had invaded most of the Caribbean. By 2015, they had expanded throughout the Gulf of Mexico and into the northern portions of South America. So you can see this showing their slow spread at first, but then really fast after 2000. Up the East Coast first, and then, as you can see, down to the south after that, and then out to the west following. So their southward expansion was delayed by the plumes of the major rivers in South America, the Orinoco and the Amazon, but they recently breached both of those, and the current range extends well into South America, and populations are likely to continue south to a certain extent, but at least fill in more along the Brazilian coast. There are several characteristics that make lionfish exceptional invaders. As any of you who work in invasive species, you'll recognize these, but they'll look familiar to you, whether on land or at sea, if you're working on aquatic or terrestrial species. First, they're prolific breeders, with each female putting out millions of eggs each year on a almost continual basis. And they can do this for years at a time as they're alive. Second, lionfish are excellent hunters. They lie in wait, or they stalk, or they corral prey, and then they sort of simultaneously pounce slightly, but then slurp the prey in through gaping jaws. They eat invertebrates often when they're young, like shrimp or small fish when they're young, and then larger fish as they grow larger themselves. Third, there seems to be very few lionfish predators in the invaded range that are interested in them as regular food items, at least not at levels that would control populations or population growth. And some people have reported predation by sharks and by eels and groupers, barracuda, and a few other species, but not a lot of evidence of high levels of predation. For many fish, it's a challenge to swallow lionfish when they're large because of the spines, for one thing. And that can lead to injury, as you can see the spines poking through this eel's face. And it's also likely that the venom of lionfish deters predation. In addition to their ecological impacts, lionfish affect commercial fishing in a number of ways by eating important prey of commercial species, by eating juveniles of those commercial species before they have a chance to grow to a size where they can reach that refuge, and by deterring targeted fish and lobsters, for example, from entering traps, so reducing catches in traps of native fish. They can also cause severe stings in fishermen that can put them out of work for a day or a few days at a time. Now, we've been hoping for years that natural controls would emerge for lionfish. There were attempts to speed things up in the early days by feeding speared lionfish to potential native predators, and the predators took the bait, but there really hasn't been the anticipated large-scale transition to natural hunting by the native species, from what we can tell. Other natural controls like diseases and parasite loads in lionfish, these kind of things could reduce their fitness and reproduction, and they have been seen, but again, not at levels that we believe are high enough to control the invasion. Now, humans, on the other hand, we've learned quickly that how easy it is to shoot lionfish and how good their meat is. So we remain their most formidable predator for now. Studies have shown that we can actually hunt lionfish down to levels that actually do keep their populations in control. Concerted hunting effort is required. It's one of the most pleasant surprises over the last decade or so. Regular derbies and consistent culling at a local level, they can reduce lionfish to, in many places, to the point where they're actually kind of hard to find. So their ecological impact is drastically reduced or eliminated. Commercial fishing can add even higher levels of control. In shallow water, some hunters, this is Rachel Bowman in the Florida Keys. I think I saw Rachel on the list of people on this call. So, hey, Rach. So some hunters who have become so dedicated and skilled that they've been able to, parlay those skills into commercial fishing. And Rachel has her own business in the Florida Keys. And like other people who have done this, can sell their seafood to distributors and to restaurants. And Rachel's one of the best hunters you'll find anywhere. So this is why this kind of thing works for certain people who've really picked up the cause. And in doing so, it helps us keep lionfish populations down even more. But what to do in places beyond diving depths in deep water? Lionfish are really abundant below those depths, really high numbers at 150 to 300 feet or 400 feet or so. But you can find them all the way to 1,000 feet, and they're having the same impacts down there as they do in shallow water. So numerous ideas have been floated to give nature a hand keeping lionfish abundances under control in deep water, but none have been as successful as spearfishing in shallow water because they remove so many so fast, or they can. People have built prototype robots that can spear or electrocute or vacuum up lionfish using either diver-held devices or ROVs or subs. And people have proposed having a fleet of subs and ROVs down there that would hunt lionfish continually. And while I wish we could do that, the investments to make that happen, to even make a dent in lionfish population because of the rates of capture, would be, they've kept them from being implemented, even though they are the best ideas we have so far. So that we haven't really not been able to control lionfish in deep water effectively. Several versions of lionfish traps have been worked on, some using modified versions of existing traps, like lobster traps, and then others that are new. I've been designing a folding mechanical trap that I'll show a little video clip of here. It relies on the natural attraction of lionfish to structure. And that allows the traps to be baitless and attracts the lionfish almost exclusively, and that keeps bycatches to a minimum. This is how the trap looks when it's being dropped from a boat. This was when it was just undergoing testing, so you won't see any lionfish in it here. But it just shows how the trap works when it drops to the bottom and springs open because of those curved units of the jaws, the deflectors that it has. So you can see it pops open, and the FAD, the attraction device, stands in the middle, and the net just lays on the bottom waiting for lionfish to show up. So that's how the trap is deployed. And then when lionfish show up to it, along with occasionally some other fish, it looks like this. They're attracted to the trap by the vertical lattice that's in the middle, much like they are to artificial reefs, heavily attracted. You can see in that picture on the upper left. Any structure attracts lionfish for all practical purposes. So they tend to arrive pretty quickly, usually within minutes to hours, and then they use the lattice there as temporary shelter. And they're docile enough fish, hardly moving at all, to stay put while the trap is being pulled and closing around them. Other fish around the trap tend to scatter when they see the jaws start to move and close around them. And the jaws don't close quite that fast for them to be able to be caught. So bycatch levels remain really low for these traps. And this video will show how the net billows. It's a very loose net on the frame. So how it billows when it closes around the lionfish. So they're not touched by the net until the trap is fully closed, keeping them from being driven off. And because the trap only closes around the fish at the end of the soak period, there's no stress or trap mortality associated with it while it's on the bottom. Here's when the trap's being pulled. You can see the loose netting Now it looks like a ball for a second, and then it closes around the fish after the trap frame is fully closed. So it's very simple and fully mechanical. So no failure points really in terms of electrical systems and things like that. We've been recently testing the commercial potential for these traps in South Florida, led by Lex Bryant and Ali Candelmo of the Reef Environmental Education Foundation. Unfortunately, catch rates around natural hard bottoms, because they're so expansive, we believe, the areas that we tested these traps in for this study, they're much lower than we found near artificial reefs. They don't pull the fish off the natural hard bottom as well. And they weren't high enough to make them profitable or attractive for fishermen. So we're hoping next to test some new approaches, like clustering the traps closely together rather than spreading them out far apart, and adding some luring devices, artificial fish, for example, and maybe lights and things like that to increase catches. So we're not done testing the commercial potential of these, but the preliminary tests around natural hard bottoms were not as encouraging as we hoped they would be, but really hopeful that we can still make something of this. So as you might imagine, in 25 years since the population explosion at the turn of the century, a lot's been learned in response effort to the lionfish invasion in the Western Atlantic. Several of us who have worked in that area have teamed up with a multinational group from the scientists and managers from the Mediterranean countries on an article published in 2022. And the purpose there was to publish lessons learned in the Western Atlantic so they could apply the responses, or apply our lessons to the responses to the invasion in the Mediterranean. Lionfish invaded that sea differently than they invaded the Western Atlantic. They came through the Suez Canal from the Red Sea, and they're now expanding rapidly in the Mediterranean from east to the west. So in this publication, we recommended that relaxing regulations to allow spearfishing, at least spearfishing for lionfish, and the use of competitions and commercialization to incentivize removals, along with regional planning and cooperation among Mediterranean countries, are probably going to be the best ways to fight the invasion in that region. And countries in that area are not used to cooperating. And this is something we're going to have to work on for sure. But we recommended against bounties based on our experience, bounties being paying, states or countries paying individual fishermen for bringing in individual fish. We found that those are unsustainable, unaffordable, really, when you have large populations like lionfish. We also pointed out the downsides of training predators to eat lionfish. When we tried it and thought it was going to be a good idea, we found that it results in very aggressive behaviors in large animals, among other problems. So this is why it really has not been promoted more in the Western Atlantic than it was originally. But we also like to talk about the silver linings of the lionfish invasion. From an environmental standpoint, clearly the invasion's been undeniably a disaster, but it has been inspiring to watch how people from so many walks of life have joined forces in response to the invasion in the Western Atlantic, all hoping to do their part to control the outbreak and protect the places that they love, because they realize the impacts of lionfish from the studies that have been done. And here are a few examples. Tournaments and festivals that are happening in the Southeast, mostly in the United States, are not only ways to control lionfish, but they're becoming reunions for new and old friends who have made their acquaintances through this invasion. And while they are putting a dent in lionfish populations, they're also putting good money in some people's pockets. And lionfish hunters themselves are straight out of central casting, really. Jeff McGregor wrote an article in Smithsonian Magazine a few years ago now, calling people of this invasion the ragtag army that's fighting back. And most of these folks I never would have had the privilege to meet if it weren't for lionfish. And honestly, I never would have appreciated just how much of a difference a large and a diverse, dedicated group of volunteers can make on a conservation issue like this. That's been a real eye-opener for me and a real career highlight. And you have to give huge credit to folks like this, especially Ali Al-Haj for promoting the hunting craze when he's an architect who invented zookeepers and founded the company that sells them. Zookeepers are containers that allow divers to catch and transfer lionfish quickly and safely from their spear. And they've become the gold standard for containers. And you'll see many a picture of a diver carrying a zookeeper if they're hunting lionfish. Starting in 2014, Lionfish University was started and created a really powerful social network for lionfish responders. It's what Lionfish University is, a social network. And they've promoted communication and action, produced training videos, funded trap research, and sponsor various kinds of events and people to work on lionfish. And even to help get ready for this talk, Lionfish University sent out a survey of their field reporters to get the latest information on lionfish from the places where they live. Lionfish University also put together a team to work with Antigua. They're sponsored by the Mill Reef Club down there, and they help Antigua with lionfish control on many levels, including holding derbies and promoting commercial fishing and lionfish as seafood, and then doing education and outreach. So commercialization has been one of the drivers of the persistence of the response to the lionfish invasion. Seafood markets are one clear opportunity, obviously, as people have realized the high quality of lionfish and the taste of it as seafood. So far, demand far outweighs the supply, and markets and distribution have remained largely local for that reason. Still, they add diversity and uniqueness to coastal and island cuisines, and cookbooks have even been written focused on lionfish. The unanswered question really is just how much potential there is for a commercial seafood marketing of lionfish. Another business opportunity, thanks in part to Phil Karp, who also I think was on this call. Phil worked for the World Bank, and he's committed in particular to the plight of underprivileged women. He helped women in several countries around the Caribbean pull themselves out of some really desperate financial and personal situations by helping them start their own businesses manufacturing and selling lionfish jewelry. Many of these women now have their own businesses and sell their products internationally. Scott Ganello, another highlight. He retired young from the corporate world. His specialty is search engine optimization, but he wanted to do something he felt was more important than that, more meaningful, conservation. And he's been focusing on lionfish and developing apps to document the invasion, to a video game to attract attention and educate people, a comic book to highlight the people of the lionfish invasion, and even working on ways to control lionfish populations using a submersible. So a real diverse work effort by Scott, picking up in places where other people have never been able to. And Arav Chavda, a guy with nothing but a mechanical engineering or an aerospace engineering degree from Princeton, well, and a love for diving. Arav and two partners started a company that makes leather from lionfish skin, adding even more to the value of caught fish. So Inversa started with lionfish, but have now diversified and expanded to other invasives, Burmese python and Asian carp. You can see the beautiful leather that comes from those species. Asian carp's marketed as dragonfin, if you ever see that name. And the products that the fashion designers are coming out with are spectacular, but the prices for high fashion put this in a whole different category than other markets that lionfish are starting to enter. So really interested to see where this fashion industry connection goes. So leaving aside the problems and the silver lining of the lionfish invasion for a moment, big questions remain in my mind. Where are lionfish on this cycle that invasive species tend to follow? We hear a lot about the phases that lead right up to the invasion peak for invasive species, but not a whole lot is in the literature about the post-invasion period. And that's what's really interesting to me. Invasions usually start with this lag between the introduction and the expansion phase of a species invasion. And it's a time period in which the species are becoming established in the new area, And we saw it in Florida occurring between 1985 and 2000 before the big explosion. The first significant impacts you see, they become evident as the population rises rapidly and starts to spread. But at some point, populations of invasive species seem to come under some sort of controls, natural or otherwise, and they stop rising. And of course, different places are going to be in different parts of this cycle at any given time. But lionfish in many places around the Caribbean seem to have reached their peak several years ago. And it's the like I said before, the post-peak phase that I'm becoming interested in. I want to watch the dynamics of this phase that I'm calling the post-peak equilibrium. Not a pretty name, but it's all I could really come up with. And what will be the long-term lionfish populations in different places? How much will they fluctuate, for example? How high will they go? How low will they go? What factors will determine the different levels that occur? And what will be the ultimate legacy of the lionfish impacts? Will they be highly destructive on a continual basis by staying high? Will they be simply disruptive at some lower levels of abundance? Or will they be sort of non-existent as the species become less and less, abundant and perhaps even disappear? We don't believe that's going to happen, but we just don't know where on the spectrum of destroy, disrupt, and disappear the lionfish will end up. It certainly seems possible that lionfish may simply blend in with native fish and in the long term have minimal discernible impact on native populations, but that's still to be determined. And so there are a few other questions related to all this that are lingering about this invasion. So Lionfish University's field reporters, along with other reports from the region, they tell us that in many places, they have lower populations of lionfish than they did a few years ago. Now, culling alone likely didn't produce such a widespread change that we're seeing around the whole region, or maybe it has, but is it possible that nature has started to respond with predation or some other controls that reduce reproductive output of lionfish? Like I said before, parasite loads and diseases. I mentioned that some fish have been seen preying on adult lionfish, but what if selective predation is happening on juvenile lionfish? We're not seeing the adults be consumed so much, but what if juveniles are being consumed at a pretty high rate? Wouldn't that also produce the abundance patterns that we're seeing now? Fewer juveniles would mean fewer adults, and there would be massive declines in reproduction. So in many places, we're seeing fewer juvenile lionfish as well than we have in the past. So that could be a sign that predators are eating lionfish when they're young and easier to swallow. And all of that's going on unnoticed by divers or unreported. I'd love to see some confirmation of that phenomenon to see if it's really true. Also, lionfish may not always have the large impact on ecosystems when they invade that we've seen in some other places like in the Bahamas. But on one set of particularly healthy reefs in the northern Gulf of Mexico, the Flower Garden Banks, lionfish exist, but they don't appear to have reduced native fish populations. That's good news, but it also raises the question, do healthy reefs or high numbers of native large fish increase the resistance of reef ecosystems to this invasion? And might even small fish, healthy small fish populations make reef ecosystems more resilient once lionfish populations are put under control? Both those things are possible, and the flower gardens might be a good example of where that's occurring. And also, what causes the huge differences we're seeing in the massive fluctuations in recruitment that we're seeing in different places? Off the Florida Panhandle, tournament divers that hunt there keep catching 20 to 30,000 lionfish on artificial reefs during the annual Emerald Coast Open tournament, which, by the way, is happening starting tomorrow this weekend. How does that area continually get such high replacement of lionfish compared to other places? The productivity of these waters must be exceptional to produce all the fish needed to feed these gluttonous predators, lionfish. So, and then finally, this is a short list of some of the big picture questions about the future of the lionfish invasion. Among the countless questions we have about climate change, it's also likely that it will influence lionfish distributions. and probably their reproductive output, their early life survival, and the resistance of the ecosystems that they invade. So we're hoping that some of the reef restoration projects that are underway across the region, that those will help restore not only corals and the coral ecosystems, but native fish communities. And that could also affect the lionfish invasion, though it's not clear in what direction, as predators or prey. So that could go either way for us. And we're also starting to see more and more non-indigenous species becoming established in the Western Atlantic. This is not good news in general, but none of them have yet had any of the impacts of lionfish or anything close to those impacts. But there could eventually be competition among invasive species in this region. And we don't know what that will lead to. But that's occurring in the Mediterranean Sea, where there are something like 70 invasive species in that ocean, in the Mediterranean, including lionfish that arrived through the Suez Canal. And next is, we're still hopeful that lionfish markets for food, for jewelry, for leather, et cetera, other products, that those will continue to grow and incentivize fishing, both to reduce lionfish populations and give native commercial species a break. What can be better than making money while doing conservation? That would be a great thing for the fishing community to be able to say. But for the markets to grow, it's going to take a lot of outreach and education to attract people to the new opportunities and then train them for success. Last on this list is a question about whether lionfish from the Mediterranean will eventually enter the Eastern Atlantic and then spread maybe into Africa and ultimately merge with the Western Atlantic population. What the impact of that might be has not really been considered, to my knowledge. So if I've learned nothing else about the working on this lionfish invasion, it's clear to me that there's an endless supply of innovative people with ideas that have turned some of them into pioneers. And one of my favorite examples is this guy, Peter Angelotti, who's has a landscaping business in the Florida Keys, and more important to me is his incredibly imaginative mind. And Rachel Bowman is his partner. I showed her a picture before with the zookeeper full of lionfish. She urged me, after I met her, to meet Peter and get his advice on trap building, because he just thinks differently than a lot of us in much more imaginative ways. So I told him I wanted to make the traps as simple as I could, so people all around the Caribbean could build them quickly and cheaply, and that I was hoping to minimize the need for welding and drilling. And when I said that, Peter walked out of the room without a word. And he's a welder, so I was wondering whether I might have offended his welding sensibilities. But after a few minutes later, came back with a twisted up coat hanger that he showed me, and it became a model for making the trap completely weldless by bending the rebar that we use for the frames into small loops so that we could form hinges with those loops rather than welding on and drilling these hinge tabs that we had been doing up to that point. So then Peter built a rebar bender that made the job really simple and quick on full-size traps. And now we could probably crank out 20 or more frames a day. And in the past, could have been 1 or 2 or 3. But I know there are more Peters out there, some older, some younger. But we have to find these people and take advantage of their skills and their passions to help deal with this invasive species and other invasive species problems. And of course, a whole host of other conservation problems: restoration, waste management, spill response, debris cleanups, coastal protection, disease management, controlling algae blooms. We have a big sargassum problem in the Western Atlantic. These people with their imaginative minds, they're inventors, engineers, teachers, artists, chefs, and entrepreneurs in general. That I know they would love to put their skills to work more meaningfully than some of them are doing right now. And I expect many of them would do just that if they could afford to. And as our environmental problems continue to worsen, I believe it's critical that we find new ways to reward their ingenuity and attract them to doing this kind of work when it's directed at conservation. And I just finished with this question: what better investment is there than saving a planet we can't live without? So with that, I thank you for your attention and welcome any kind of questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Steve. Really appreciated that focus on innovation and just really inspiring people to do their part to help us manage these invasive species. So thank you very much. You do have a few questions in the Q&A, and what I might do is have you type responses if you're able to do so. And if we get additional questions, we'll make sure we get those over to you. Yolanda's here now, so we'll have her come on and give her introduction. But I just want to thank you again. I really enjoyed your presentation, and we'll make sure that gets posted and shared with folks here as well. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Yolanda, if you share, we'll see your slides now.
So I am Yolanda Berries. I'm the head of Invasive Species Department at the National Commission for the Knowledge and Use of Biodiversity in Mexico. We are in Mexico City. I will talk a little bit more about CONABIO in my next slide. First, I was going to talk about Mexico in general and our whole structure for invasive species. We started with our Ecology Secretariat in 1982. So as I was saying, as compared to the US, where the EPA started in 1970, I think we're not too far behind. Our general law was a little bit far behind in comparison to, I think, Canada and the US, so 1990. And then CONABIO, which is where I work, is started in 1992 after the Rio Summit. And then the invasive species, sort of the importance of invasive species in the country started in 2006. So after the Millennium Ecosystem Assessment was published worldwide, Mexico also did sort of our ecosystem assessment. It was called Natural Capital. And that same year, in 2006, the cactus moth was detected in the Yucatan Peninsula also. So this all brought attention to the problem of invasive species. And in CONABIO, the invasive species area where I am was created in 2007. So quite far behind the year where CONABIO was first started. And then lionfish was detected in 2009. And this also raised more awareness to the problem. In 2010, we published our national strategy. And then 6 years later, our first official list. And then we had some funding from GEF, from the UN, to carry out a lot of projects related to the objectives of the national strategy. Right now in 2004, we are becoming part of the Environmental Secretariat, so there's more changes going on. So we'll see what the future holds. So CONABIO, the institution, as I said, it's a National Commission for the Knowledge and Use of Biodiversity. Up till now, we have been an intersecretarial commission, which means that we can call upon all the different ministries in the country for whatever needs are related to biodiversity. We are the repository of the National Information System on Biodiversity. So all the information that's generated from all the institutions in the country, all the information that is held in different institutions around the world has been brought to us, and we have it here. It's a very unique institution in the world, close to similar to SAMBI in South Africa, but a lot of countries have come to see how we operate because it is a unique institution. We provide data and scientific information as a bridge between scientists that are on the field and in universities and academic institutions doing research and publishing in scientific papers. And we translate it into different formats, documents, talks, maps, everything, so that decision makers at all levels can use the information. This goes from state politicians, people doing legal modifications to biodiversity laws, field workers, and even everyday people making decisions on their lives. We work with a lot of institutions. These are just very few of the institutions that we work with. In the federal government, as I said, as an intersecretarial commission that we have been. We work with most ministries institutes, the Forestry Commission, Climate Change Commission, fisheries, protected areas, agriculture, and all these bonds have taken a long time to create. It hasn't been just because, oh, we're CONABIO and we can now work together. It has been a lot of work because the work between institutions has been very separate. So some state governments we've worked with, a lot of universities, we have financed projects with a lot of universities and different institutions, and also NGOs. And like I said, we received funding from GEF, from the UN recently for our project. This is the distribution of the information that we have in taxonomic groups. As you can see, most of it is plants, and we also have a lot of information on fish species. We have the ornamental fish industry in Mexico is huge. So we have dedicated a lot of time and resources, and we have the University of Nuevo León that we work with, that they have done a lot of work with invasive fish. So that's why it's such a big group. And plants are, of course, the group that we have the most species on. We have about 800 invasive species that we have identified based upon risk assessments. Other types of information that we have in CONABIO, in the invasive species area, is risk assessments, information sheets, maps. All of the results of all of the projects that we have financed is available for the public. This was, for example, a project on ciguatera, research to see if there was ciguatera in the lionfish in the Caribbean. Publications such as the strategy. We have photographs that are available, high resolution, for anyone that wants to use them for free from all the projects. We have a thing called Enciclovida, where all of the information on all the species that are found in Mexico can be found. So there's photographs, maps, the points where it can be found, where it has been identified. And as you can see here, for example, in the particular case of lionfish, we have a lot of, it's a very good example of citizen science. We have 700 specimens that have been registered, and out of these 500 registrations come from citizen science. So this in recent years has become extremely important. And in the case of invasive species, it's even more because of the need for early detection. This is also what you can find in Enciclovida, which is the listing of all the invasive species. Here we have the marine fish that we have on our database, which are just 3. We have other exotic fish that are present, but they have not been assessed as invasive. So of course, the 2 main ones are the 2 species of lionfish that we have in the Caribbean, and they are Pterois volitans have the highest risk assessment result of all the species that we have assessed. And in this page, you can download the risk assessment, the evaluation, and all the information that we have. So everything that we do is available for the public. We also have publications. And yes, I mean, along the years, lionfish has become the face of invasive species in Mexico. So a lot of the publications and the posts that are done on social media and things like that, they always have lionfish. I have a friend here in CONABIO that said, I don't know what you do, I just know it's lionfish, because everything invasive species seems to be related to lionfish. So of course we have a lot more. Like I said, there's 800, but lionfish is the main species that everyone identifies. We have a lot of material that we have made throughout the years also, and a lot of this was with the funding of the GEF project. We participate in the Invasive Species Week. Yeah, here's a hashtag in Spanish. We have board games, and we sent a box of this to Christy at NAISMA. So if anybody else wants one, then you can just pay the shipping. We will be very happy to send it to you. We do a lot of communication with the public, with different groups, and also we have these board games in Giant. But this is something that we have focused on for the past few years, because we have identified the need for people to know about this problem and what they can do, and involve them in the conservation of biodiversity, and in particular in this topic. All the information, as I said, is on our website. We have a serious website and we have fun website, which is kind of for kids, but I think it's just fun, not necessarily for kids. There's games and there's audios here. There's some interviews with all these species. So you can listen to the interview to Lionfish, where he talks about where he's from and why he's here and why he eats so much and blah, blah. So I think it's really cute. And this is our participation in the Lionfish activities, which Mateo will be talking more about. But I think just in general, in invasive species, these are the things that are needed. Collaboration among sectors, strengthening efforts, legal framework has a lot of gaps, and well, communication programs, which is what we have been doing. And also, well, in particular case of lionfish, and I hope Mateo speaks about this, I would like to know what is the future for a species that has acquired economic importance within the society. So how they are planning to deal with that as the lionfish is harder and harder to catch. I also want to talk about the earrings because there's a community, I am wearing them. There's a community called Xcalac, and they make these. They have those, they have like other like necklaces. So I'm hoping Mateo will also tell us how we contact them. I know they're on Facebook, but I think if Mateo could be a link with the community of the women that are the wives of the fishermen that are catching the fish. And they have been working on this technique for a long time. They used to just paint them with transparent nail polish and they would go bad. So now they have perfected the technique with acrylic. They've started teaching the women in Guatemala to make it. So I think, Mateo, please tell us how we can contact them and get more jewelry. And, so I think that's it for me. Just a very brief introduction. If you have any more questions, please let me know. And I think Mateo will be speaking next, right, Tegan?
Yes, thank you so much. So I can give an introduction for Mateo, and then we will be switching over to Spanish at that time. So everyone will need to change their language settings. So Yolanda, maybe you can share that with folks while I'm doing the intro, but for Spanish speakers, they will want to select the original audio. And for English speakers, you'll want to make sure you have English selected for that. Well, thank you, Yolanda, and welcome to Mateo. So Mateo will be giving us a presentation on 15 years with the lionfish, lessons learned from community participation for the monitoring and control of lionfish in the Mexican Caribbean. And Mateo is a biologist at the Institute of Biodiversity and Protected Natural Areas of the State of Quintana Roo. He has a master's degree in coastal zone management and has been working in research and conservation of coastal ecosystems with local communities in the Mexican Caribbean for the past 14 years. During this time, he has collaborated on 30 projects on topics such as lionfish, artisanal queen conch fisheries, spiny lobster, reef fish, coral restoration, protected area management, fishing refuge areas, wildlife monitoring, citizen science, and the strengthening of coastal communities. So thank you for joining us. And then I think we do have a slide that shows the settings for folks again. So original audio for Espanol, and then English will be English and muting original audio. And Mateo, you can get started. Thank you. Gracias.
Hola, hola. Buenas tardes a todas y todos. Hi, my name is Mateo. Thank you for the invitation.
So I'm going to start talking about the experiences that we have worked with in the Mexican Caribbean, particularly the South Center in Quintana Roo, State of Quintana Roo. throughout the past 50 years where we have had lionfish presence. We will introduce this as a talk with friends that we have worked with. Show you the friends that we have worked with in the Caribbean. And I'm just with all these people that are really the information of biodiversity and the control of lionfish in Mexico. So first, community participation. This is very important. This is parts of the community that are organized or individually, and they become involved, become part of the solution to problems. This is an important thing. Protect natural areas. Community participation in protected areas is extremely important. It allows the creation. It allows the management of the natural areas. Citizen science allows the participation of public in activities of scientific research important, and especially the participation of the communities, because they support the research of the scientific community. They contribute with their knowledge, the communities contribute and share a special value that only they have. What do citizens get from their participation? They get knowledge, new abilities. They also receive training, but it also improves the interaction between scientific community and citizens and the protected area administrations. And all of these results in stronger studies and they allow to improve the knowledge and the management and the conservation of the resources. This is really important because it is well known that when the community is not involved in conservation topics for monitoring and management, these projects will probably fail in the future because the community has not appropriated and they do not feel like they belong, they have been consulted in the conservation of their resources. So it's important to have their participation to guarantee have greater probability for conservation projects successful, and independently of whether there is financing or not, the communities can later on give continuity to the project. How is citizen science carried out in terms of invasive species? Well, it complicates itself in aquatic ecosystems because the people have to have certain abilities and certain knowledge to participate in the control and monitoring in the water. Because of this, the active participation of communities is very important. Volunteers, scientists, and communities. This is important for the detection, monitoring, management, and control of these species. Specifically on lionfish in the Caribbean, as Yolanda said, it was detected in 2009 in the reefs of Cozumel. Later on, more detections were observed in the south of the Caribbean, in places such as Calac, Porro, and later on in the south of Mexico. Because thanks to the communities, we were able to detect the first observations. This is a picture of Marcelo, well, better known as the Caguamo, and he works in the Campo Chinchorro Reef. Because Thanks to the observations in 2009, an early detection warning was released. The protected areas, which are managed by the National Commission of Protected Areas, started with the leadership of facing the invasion of lionfish. And it was also important to learn how to monitor, to start research activities, and also the use of the species. Once that the first observations and captures were noticed, specifically, I will talk to you about observations in the south, and in Coral Reef and Xcalac National Park, where I have been working with different institutions and communities. We work through 4 main axes, which were captures, control, and this was thanks to the fishermen cooperatives in the area. There are 3 groups of fishermen in the area: CONABIO, IBANQROO fishermen, the Caribbean, and the diving houses. In terms of research, several research groups such as Biodiversity, Biodiversity, Technological University. They participate in research and also in education. The use of lionfish they also participated in the use of lionfish. And all this participation was integrated in the different sectors. These are all the logos of the different associations that have been participating. And these have all cooperated with each other to be able to improve the knowledge and participate in the control of lionfish. Particularly the National Commission of Protected Areas, CONAM, has been the leader in this process of the engagement of the lionfish and domestic. From the beginning all the way to our day, we have included the communities with financing programs to help the communities generate projects, not just control, but also use of the species. So I will talk to you about some of this experience that Xcalac, Chorro, and recently Cozumel have been working in. I will talk to you more about these activities. This is my friend Talia Molina. She's a housewife and she's a businesswoman. She now has a restaurant called Lionfish. She makes really delicious dishes. And she's part of the monitoring program of Lionfish in the community of Xcalac. They are 10 people. They work in Xcalac, and every year they start this group to protect lionfish. They have received training, not just to learn about the species, but also to learn monitoring techniques, biological, ecological, and they are promoters of the problematic within the community and the fishermen. We have also received training with clients for many years now. They are experts in measuring, weighing, identifying the sex and trauma content of the lionfish. There are both women and men in this group. Men go out and they capture the lionfish, and the women receive it, and then they do the analysis. They measure it, they weigh it. So he wants to give Talia a special recognition for her participation in this group. And all the fishermen that participate in the control area. He's another one of my friends that I have been privileged to work with in different projects. Miguel Marillo, he's a fisherman from the Chinchorro Bank. And he has always been involved in the monitoring, inspection in this protected area. I'm very proud to present his work, which is thanks to this monitoring that has been carried out. We have been able to have very important data of the population density of lionfish in this area. As you can see in this graph, in IBANQROO, which is a protected area. And Miguel has been participating in all this in 2012. And he has also received training on diving, and he can identify lionfish, but a lot of reef species. So he works also in identification of other species. Also, we can see at the bottom graph the densities, population densities in Xcalac, which is another protected area. These pictures, well, they're not as young now as they look in this picture because time has gone by, so they have been working together for a long, long time. Again, another one of my friends. We call him Nick, but his real name is Gilberto Beltran. He belongs to the community of Caldas. He's a leader in the community, and he is currently the person that is part of the control of lionfish. Every year, he brings his paperwork so they can receive financial help to go out and capture lionfish. Every year, they go out, on average, they capture around 1,000 lionfish every season. It's important here to highlight the different ways in the different capture techniques in lionfish in the area that you can see here. Through brigades, daily fish captures when they go for fishing, for financing projects that the protected areas commission have. Other projects with NGOs and other types of financing, WWF, for example. So all these captures are also different financing. At the beginning, they just used to roll out lionfish whenever they captured it, and then they realized that it could be eaten, and it was really delicious. So that's when they started using it. 2018 or 19, we had some surveys in the community to see what use the communities were giving to lionfish. It was important to find out that at the beginning, the people weren't using it, they weren't eating it, they weren't doing anything with it. In 2019, people are eating it. Everybody says that the taste of lionfish is delicious. It's classified as export meat. They talk about the possibility of commercializing it and selling it to restaurants in the area. This is a picture of Mario. His name is Marieta, and he's a fisherman and he's a cook in Banco Chinchorro. He traditionally cooks lionfish fried and eats it with the rest of the fishermen. In the south of the Mexican Caribbean, the use of lionfish is for self-consumption for the family because it's difficult to store and it's difficult to commercialize it around restaurants in bigger cities. There is one community that is commercializing. This is the Cozumel fisherman group. My friend is Mateo. She is a partner in the fisherman cooperative of Cozumel. In Cozumel, they have been able to commercialize the lionfish. So it's very rare to find now lionfish in the Cozumel reef. They have been able to have lionfish for sale with they buy it, the fishermen sell it whole to restaurants in the area of Cozumel. And the success has been so great that this group of fishermen has invited other groups of fishermen, so other groups of fishermen now sell their lionfish to them, and then they sell it to the restaurants. We've also done sampling, tasting, samplings that have been organized by NGOs, so that people from the communities can taste it and they can realize that they can eat it. Another way of using the lionfish is through handicrafts with lion. This is another one of my friends, Lenny Batun from Shala community. Warrior, she's mother, she has kids, and she still takes her time to do handicraft. She makes the earrings, and the group is called Scalart. They were the first people in Mexico that started doing these types of handicrafts and lionfish. Also with some financing with international donors and National Protective Commission. We have supported them with materials, with training, and with promotion of their products. At the beginning, they did their handicrafts very rustic, very professional, but little by little, they have been perfecting their technique so that the quality of their products is now, we could say, they're better. And they have been diversified. They don't just use the fins, but they also use other parts of the lionfish, like the antenna or intraocular organs. Here is another one of my friends, Noemi Gomez. She's also from the Scalarte. Her nickname is Nima. Also, she's another one of my friends that has been working with handicrafts. They have gone to fairs, places where there's talks on lionfish where they can sell their products. And next week they're going to Cozumel. They have been invited to Cozumel so they can participate in a handicraft fair so they can sell their products. Also, we have activities to teach the community and to share knowledge. An example is Nelson. He's a very enthusiastic kid and always participating in the different festivals of lionfish. He loves participating. He told us, along with his mom, Mimi, and his uncle, he said that he made a piñata made in the shape of lionfish for his birthday. And then he also has games to just put the tail on the lionfish, in the tail on the lionfish. So this is a game that they made in the community so that children can learn about invasive species and about lionfish in particular. These are some of the other activities with kids that we have done in the communities. And also, as I was telling you, here is our friend Jose Canto from Cozumel. He's the president of the fisherman group in Cozumel. And he has been a promoter and a leader, not just in Cozumel, but also in Mexico and the Caribbean, on how this threat can become an opportunity to not only to sell lionfish, but also to how through the lionfish we can do conservation actions. In Cozumel, they have a whole sensibilization campaign on conservation and biodiversity. The Cozumel Fisherman Group is a representative of a national web of lionfish control, not just in Mexico, but also Mexico, Belize, Panama, Costa Rica, and I think also Panama. And every so often they get together and they exchange information, training. We agree that next week they have an event, an important event in Cozumel. Where there's going to be workshops, tasting of lionfish handicrafts. And this has been 100% promoted by the fishermen groups in Cozumel with the support of their allies in the different in the Caribbean. As you can see, lionfish has been an example. Maybe at the beginning it was a threat and it's still a threat. But thanks to the community, this threat has been transformed in an opportunity. The communities can become stronger, they can join with each other, they can integrate with each other, they can work as a group, and they can do joint conservation actions to conserve the local ecosystem. This has been a very long process, along 15 years. Community work wouldn't have been possible without the support of the communities, without the appropriation of communities of the problem. And there can be a lot of government institutions that are involved, but if the communities don't feel part of the solution, it is difficult for projects to be successful. In the case of the Caribbean, this is an exceptional example of how communities become empowered through the control, monitoring of the lionfish. And as Yolanda was saying in her presentation, throughout these 15 years, there was no specific direction on how to do things. Everything was with intentions to face the problem, but there was no plan, there was no set objective or something that would guide us towards a specific goal with objectives, indicators. So it wasn't until 2023 with the support of Marfund, Amigos de Ciencan, and other institutions. We came up with a national plan for the management and control of lionfish in Mexico. This document is aligned with the regional strategy for the Mesoamerican reef, which has 5 strategies, big activities. These objectives and these lines of action aren't made up. They are based on the regional strategy, American reef. But also we take into account the activities that we had already been carried out throughout all these years, but they were just structured in a more formal setting, a format where we could have specific objectives and measure results. I would like to thank everyone, all the communities of the coastal communities, not just Mexico, but of the Caribbean. Every country that is facing the invasion of lionfish, thanks to their enthusiasm and becoming empowered, is that we have been able to carry out all these activities, and I invite them to continue with this work we'll continue following up with these actions that we have been carrying out for these years. Everything from me. If you have questions, thank you very much.
Thank you. Gracias. We'll see in the chat, but I think we will switch over to English for the final slides today. So I just wanted to again thank our speakers. This was a new format for us to bring in 2 speakers from 2 different countries and 2 different languages. And so we'll continue to work through the technical challenges of that for future presentations, but I'm hopeful that we'll be able to partner again on future presentations as well. So I wanted to thank everyone for coming today and wanted to let you know that we do have some additional webinars coming up. In June, we will have Dr. Deb McCullough discussing emerald ash borer and the protection of ash trees. And then in July, we will go back to a presentation on marine species, and we'll have Dr. Heather Spalding talking about chondria impacts to coral reefs in Hawaii. So I encourage you to register for those. And then lastly, we did want to do a drawing for those of you that attended today. We will be giving a lucky winner one of our Know Your Invasives Lionfish mugs. So we'll be doing that drawing after this webinar today. And then we will also make the recording of this available soon, probably next week. And then I'll try to work on getting the audios all together so we have some options for people. But I just wanted to thank you all. A lot of great information here, and I appreciate folks that have been putting links in the chat as well. Those are some great resources. So we'll leave that open for a minute, but we will end a little early today. I just want to say thank you. Gracias. I will make sure we have some links in our email once the recording's available. We'll try to add some of these resources. So we'll follow up with our speakers for those. Thanks everyone again for joining, and have a great day.